Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Japanaholic podcast. One-man podcast surrounded by topics all about Japan anime and games discussed by a certified Japanaholic. I am your host, Taylor Frey, and today I've got a topic that recently started becoming such a massive thing, okay? Like, more massive than I think anybody could have expected. At least if you're like talking in terms of like what it was like back in like, just a few years ago or whatever. Judging by the title of this episode, you can kind of guess what I'm talking about, and that is the rise of virtual YouTubers or virtual, how should I say this? Because it's easier to say virtual YouTubers, but it's not just like they're on YouTube, but it's also on like everywhere on social media, like Twitch, what's that website called? Nico Video. And for some reason, virtual YouTubers over the past like year and a half have been just massively spiking in terms of their popularity. I'll only talk about YouTube for this episode, but just know that in general, you see a lot more virtual streamers or a lot more virtual content creators, especially on like other websites. But I'm going to be talking mainly about YouTube for today, just because it's noticeably bigger, at least. So for anybody who this is really crazy for anybody who does not know much about like virtual YouTubers listening to a podcast that's all about Japan or whatever. But virtual YouTubers, or just virtual characters in general, essentially are just people who sit in front of like a webcam or whatever, but they have a different character shown on their screen or whatever that they record videos and stuff like that on. And back then it was kind of used to like not really show your face, but you didn't want to like create like a still pictured like video or whatever, so you wanted to like have a little bit of character into your videos. That's what it was like back then. It's not like that now, kind of, obviously. And a lot of people, when you talk about virtual YouTubers, they usually talk about Kizuna, who is considered to be one of the first virtual YouTubers. And she debuted back in 2016. But that also is, while that is kind of true, that is also kind of false. Because actually back then, there was a Japanese, or like a UK-based Japanese vlogger named Ami Yamato, who uploaded a couple videos back in 2011 with a virtual animated avatar. So it could kind of date back to 2011, but it mostly started getting popular back in 2016, and it's gotten to the point where I don't think it'll get. I don't really see this whole like VTuber stuff getting any more popular down the line, because it's really gone mainstream. Okay, I'll say that much. Okay, there's been many times where, especially in Japan, I'm talking mostly about like anything that happens in Japan, for this instance, because it didn't really take off here in the West till about 2019 or early 2019. And I'll talk about why here in a little bit. But in Japan, it's really common to see like virtual characters or just like anime in general being used to like promote something. The biggest example that I can think of off the top of my head is like when you see, especially, I saw this commercial during Christmas last year, where they actually did like an anime kind of scene. I think a lot of people know what I'm talking about because a lot of people probably have seen it. But there's commercials from McDonald's that are animated like an anime scene or whatever, and those are like really freaking like wholesome and amazing because I see a lot of those and I'm like, oh, that is super beautiful. That makes me want to go to McDonald's. But unfortunately, the McDonald's near my area is not the greatest. Not the greatest. I mean, it's still good, but I'm not going to spend like I'm not going to eat there every night of the week or whatever. But the point I'm trying to make is that it's typical for Japan to like use virtual characters as a way to promote their stuff. And, virtual YouTubers or whatever, obviously, have been, no stranger to this. There's been several instances where such as Kazuya Eyes appearance on NHK back in October 2018, which it kind of sparked some controversy, but at the same time, that's kind of like the biggest example I could give is that at the time, virtual YouTubers back in like 2018 were starting to get off the ground, but what really set it off recently was Hololive's new generation of characters, preferably creatively named Hololive English, where it had. Sorry if you hear clicking noises. I hate sitting next to my mouse whenever I'm recording these podcast episodes because I've gotten a few comments recently where, especially with the episode with Alex, actually, where people heard the mouse clickings and stuff like that. I don't know. Do people find that annoying to hear, like, some background noise? Like, not, like, terrible background noise, but, like, just, like, a nice, like, click of the mouse or whatever? Because I, unfortunately, have a very loud mouse, and a lot of people can hear this mouse whenever I'm recording videos, streaming, or recording podcast episodes. I'm sorry if you hear it. It's just sometimes I switch tabs or I switch windows to look at notes or something like that, because I obviously can't talk for 30 minutes out of my ass without some notes. But Hololive recently came out with their first generation of English VTubers. 5 of them to be exact. Obviously, the most popular one being the shark one, which is Gura, which I've made a couple videos on the Japanaholic channel. Don't get me wrong, the other 4 are incredibly popular, but Gura is like the most popular, obviously, out of like the entire English group. And, based on the title, these 5 talk only in English. Now, as well as I looked this up as well, they also have Hololive China, and I think it was Indonesia, right? Yes. Hololive China and Hololive Indonesia generations, which, I mean, that just shows that these virtual YouTubers are not like a big thing in Japan as much anymore. Hololive, and like I'm going to really talk about Hololive right now because when speaking of virtual like YouTubers or virtual characters in general, obviously the number one group that gets talked about the most is Hololive, because obviously they have a huge chunk of like characters and personalities that obviously a lot of people know and a lot of people talk about. Hololive is not the only virtual YouTuber group. Obviously there's a lot more than a lot more, how should I say this, a lot more groups out there that specialize in kind of like what Hololive does. And obviously you could look some of this up and stuff like that. But for right now, I'm going to talk specifically about Hololive. The Hololive's first generation of talents could go as far back as like early 2018, I think. Because I know they started like, Matsuri, which is one of the first characters, one of the more famous first generations outside of Fubuki. She had her debut stream in June, but she made her account back in May. I think a lot of the other first generation talents followed suit. That I think they either came before her or a little bit afterwards. I'm not entirely sure. Don't quote me on that. I think Matsuri may be like in the middle, but point still stands. They Hololive first came to like YouTube or whatever back in early 2018. They were a thing in like another website. I can't remember the exact website. I'm sorry, I don't have that information, but they had another website or whatever that they were on. I think it was Nico Video if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong on that. Nico Video was really popular in terms of like watching virtual content or whatever, virtual like YouTubers or virtual streamers, and most of them are like have migrated over to YouTube, obviously, because YouTube is the bigger platform to promote your stuff, obviously. But when Hololive came over to YouTube in 2018, it started this massive trend where it came to what ends up happening to your recommendations. Because probably if you are listening to this, you probably are already in this, what we call the rabbit hole of virtual YouTubers, or VTuber hell, as I like to call it, because once you watch one virtual YouTuber, you end up watching 20 more, and then that 20 more becomes 40 more, and then the next thing you know, you become pretty much a super fan in like 3 weeks, because for whatever reason, YouTube weirdly recommends you so much virtual YouTuber stuff the moment you click on one of them. It starts off as one, but as soon as you click one, it becomes like a virus and just spreads throughout your entire YouTube feed. Because my YouTuber feed basically consists of about 75% of Hololive, 10% other virtual YouTubers, and the rest like other videos on YouTube, like any other videos. That's like just a small bit of like what's on YouTube outside of virtual YouTubers. And it's like if you've been on YouTube for a long time, like I have, I've been at least looking at trends and stuff on YouTube ever since like 2013. Because I started my YouTube channel back in 2000. Well, I created the account back in 2011. I've said this before. I created my account back in like 2011, but I obviously didn't upload any videos until like 2016, 2017. But I've not privated, but I've unlisted like over half of my content recently because it's old content and it doesn't have to do with anything Japan related. So I was like, I'm not going to have that on my channel. Takes up too much of my space. 700 videos, more like 100 videos, or like 200. But going on to like the topic of trends is I've noticed, okay, with like how the years have gone by, like last decade, in the 2010s, is that it slowly turned to video. Like back then, videos with face cam were very popular because you wanted to see genuine reactions to what was going on the screen. If you were making any sort of videos, which at the time was mostly gaming content, you would more likely want to have a face cam to enhance the quality of your content, even if it was like a terrible webcam. Okay, like if you look, for example, like Toby Turner, like Toby Games, if you look at some of his like old Happy Wheels or his old Minecraft, like back in like once he got into like episode, what was it, like episode 200, like in the 220s or whatever, where he started using Facecam for that. You know, it's a good indication of you didn't need a good webcam in order for you to, you know, have a good video in general, because at the time, it was starting to become more and more of a thing that face cams or just showing your face in general were necessary to make your channel successful. And now it's become to the point where you don't show your face to become successful, you show an avatar to become successful. Because the thing that, like a very big controversy that, not really controversy, but like it's a big thing that everybody loves to talk about, which is money. Okay? The biggest thing that's come out of these virtual YouTubers as of recently, is, well, the super chats and the fact that a lot of these characters, I'm gonna call them characters, but they're obviously people behind the characters. But you know what I'm trying to say. These characters on especially some Hololive VTubers, I'll name one. Obviously, you know which one I'm going to be talking about here in just a minute, but they can make some huge amounts of money just doing just being an avatar or whatever. And I'm not really saying it's a bad thing. My personal opinions on virtual YouTubers is if they're happy doing what they're doing on YouTube, I'm not going to shit on them, okay? I'm not going to go crazy against them, okay? In fact, I'm the complete opposite. I love virtual YouTubers because it's weird. Trying to explain why you love virtual YouTubers is very difficult, because I love all the characters and I love their personalities, because yes, they're avatars and they're not the actual faces or whatever, but the personalities are top line. Okay, if they have a very interesting personality, if they have a personality that gets you interested in them, it shouldn't matter whether they have an avatar showing or a face cam showing or nothing in general, obviously. But this Hololive member, Coco, the dragon, the ever so famous dragon, who's known for being very fluent not only Japanese but English, which is the epitome of fame, because if you want to speak Japanese, there you go. She can speak Japanese, but then she'll pull an Uno reverse card and speak a little bit of English, but very vulgar English, might I add. Because if I remember correctly, Coco did actually she was in the States, if I remember her backstory, for a couple years, in the South. So yeah, her English is very Southern in some ways. I think it was in the South, but it's either way, whenever you live in the States for a couple years, your English becomes 60% swear words and slang, and 40% typical English. But Coco has been very, very popular on YouTube to the point where, well, she's earned over $800,000 in terms of super chats. Granted, with how super chats work on YouTube is that YouTube takes a chunk of the super chats for themselves. And as well as since Coco is working for Hololive also takes a majority of the chunk of the super chat as well. But still, if you take away even if Coco was getting 25%, which I think maybe a little bit more, I don't know exactly how much they take out, because I don't really like talking, getting personal when it comes to money. I know in the Japanese culture, it's not as not much of a big thing as it is here in the West, where it's you will never, ever, ever get people talking about their figures or their income, because it's super private to them, unless it's family or close friends. But even then, it's it's a little out there that you would probably talk about your earnings or something like that. And in Japan, it's not like that, but it's also at the same time, it's people won't brag about their earnings, or people won't talk openly about it at any point in time. But it's not like here in the States. They'll talk about it every once in a while, but they're not gonna really. But going on back to the Coco, okay. Even if she's still getting about 25% of the 800,000 that she's gotten in super chats, that's roughly 800,000, might I add. She would still be getting $200,000 for herself, which that's just incredible. All on YouTube, all just streaming, okay? And mind you, most times these Hololive streamers have like a mixed bag of what they do in terms of like their streaming content. Example I'll give is Okayu, which is personally one of my favorites. I personally love Okayu a lot. So if you follow my Twitter page, which is at the Japanaholic1, you will definitely see me post a little bit about Okayu and virtual YouTubers in general. Just pointing that out there. But her content really consists of her playing games and then her having like her discussions and just like chatting with, you know, people every so often or whatever. Not every VTuber is like this. Sometimes they just play games all the time, and sometimes they only like do discussions, and sometimes they'll actually like do like VR live shows or whatever, where they actually like have 3D models and stuff like that. Which that takes some talent. Okay, that takes a huge amount of talent, not just from like the Hololive star themselves, but like the person behind the avatar doing all the customization and stuff like that. Because let me tell you, as somebody who tried to work in like a 2D editor or whatever, that is not it's not like something you could. It's not like a paper and pencil where you can quickly like, you know, quickly write something down or whatever. It's not easy. It's so difficult to create 2D models, let alone 3D models. That takes a whole lot of time and a whole lot of effort. That when you see these VR shows with like the characters being 3D characters, whatever, it's incredibly like weird. It's incredibly weird to think about how much time and effort went into making these 3D models, and they run super duper fluently smooth. Okay. And the thing is it's not just Coco who's been having a lot of success recently in terms of like super chat earnings, okay? Because 7, at least in the top 10 like biggest super chat earners on YouTube, 7 of them are virtual YouTubers. Okay, 7 of them are like people like Coco who are just behind these avatars and stuff like that. I don't know how much of them are Hololive members, but still 70% of the top super chat earners on YouTube are virtual YouTubers. That just shows that they're, you know, that's a complete 180 from what it was back in like 2016 or 17, where, you know, a lot of like the biggest earners or whatever were just like people showing their faces or people doing reaction videos. That was a terrible thing. Or that was a terrible terrible fad back in like 2016 and 17, which is like still a thing now to this day. Like I see a lot of reaction videos on my in my recommendations, but it wasn't as bad. It wasn't as bad now as it is like back in 2016, where it was like the only thing on YouTube, and it was like blatant stealing. I mean, it kind of still is now to this day, but like, not as bad as it was before. But to continue on with Hololive or virtual YouTubers in general, 70% of the top earnings on YouTube, at least in Super Chat, is VTubers. So I want to know the other 3, because the thing is though is that while that is, I will say this though, while that is pretty high, 70% is a lot. That also, at the same time though, people over at like Twitch and stuff like that, like if you go over on Twitch, it's a whole different story, because while virtual streamers have been a thing on Twitch, and in fact there's a huge category of them that you can obviously look up and go into V-streamer hell for that, or go in the rabbit hole, but still, like the highest supported, like Twitch streamers are obviously like the big dog streamers, okay? And they are like ones that don't show their face and stuff like that. But even then, like, there's recently been, I don't know if Pokimane has been doing this lately. She did do one stream where she turned herself into a virtual streamer. I don't know what's been going on with that lately because I haven't heard much outside of that. I just saw that she posted like a small clip of her using her 3D model, and uh I think that it was just her one-time thing, but I could be wrong. Any tier 3 Pokimane subs, don't come at me, please, because that is I don't follow her because I'm not interested in her. Honestly, just not really interested. Now I'm going to be like talking about possibly one of the biggest issues that have come out of virtual YouTubers in the past about a year or so. I mean, the thing is that virtual YouTubers or just content creators in general, they haven't had like a huge issue or whatever. They've never really had like big controversies. I mean, like, honestly, like one of the bigger controversies to come out of like Hololive, like was just recently with, I think it was like their 5th gen. Was it their 5th gen? Give me a second. Yeah, it was Mono Aloy, who just the entire video in general could obviously have an entire episode dedicated onto. But she got involved in some controversy, and she was unfortunately, I don't know if she was forced to, but she retired early on in her she made her debut in August 15th of this year, and then retired like not too long afterwards. So yeah, that was probably one of the bigger controversies to come out of like the past like few years. I actually did a little. I actually discussed more about this in the top news of August, anime news of August, obviously. And I'm sorry if I'm sounding like it's hard to like. I hate talking negative. I really hate talking negative. You will understand this. If you start to know me personally or whatever, you know that whenever I speak like negative or whatever, I just have a hard time putting into words what I want to say, because I don't want to say the wrong thing, and I obviously don't want to offend anybody, obviously. But there was a well, I'm going to offend somebody already. There was an SJW out there named Brittany Fenty, I think it was her name. I don't know. I have her blocked on Twitter, obviously. But she's been having this entire issue lately with Hololive English, especially Gura. Obviously, if you are into virtual YouTubers, especially the virtual YouTuber English group or whatever of Hololive English, you know this. You definitely know this. It would be almost impossible for me to find somebody who does not know about this controversy. But apparently, according to Brittany, Gura is being used to lure child predators or whatever. And basically, she's talking down on these virtual YouTubers or whatever, just because you could obviously look up like a video, like the video about this. I don't really want to talk much about it, but the point that I want to make about this topic is that when something becomes popular, people are going to shit on it, and Hololive is definitely no exception to this at all. Okay, and not only that, but Project Melody set a lot of porn stars off, okay, because of the fact that people were jerking off to a virtual porn star rather than an actual porn star. There were a few that I saw that did not like Project Melody at all. Personal opinion, I don't mind her. That's the thing. Do your own thing. But people who this is hard for me to put into words, because like I don't get their side of this. That's the thing. I'm trying to explain to this, but it's like I don't understand where these people are coming from, where they're all like, oh, I don't like virtual YouTubers, they're stupid. Why are people jerking off to Project Melody when she's a fake person. She could be doing it to me. Jerk off to me. But no, it's like, I don't understand their perspective. That's the thing, and that's what's causing me to have like this issue with trying to put into words with these controversies and stuff like that. But the point that I just want to make in general is that when something becomes big, people are going to start hating it because it's big, and it's cool to hate something that's popular, I guess. I don't know. Unpopular opinion, I think that's stupid. But popular opinion, I like virtual YouTubers. There you go. But virtual YouTubers, at least for the past like year and a half, have gotten massive. That's the point that I'm trying to make for this entire episode. They are slowly taking over YouTube, and the next thing you know, we are going to be living in a world full of AI. But it is the year 2020, so I would not be surprised, considering how much shit this year's been throwing at us. But so I really, like I said before, it's super difficult to talk a lot about like specific virtual YouTubers or virtual people in general, because as of recording this, at least as this episode is released, there's easily over 10,000 virtual YouTubers, or easily over 20,000 virtual like content creators in general, like outside of YouTube, like on Twitch and on Nico Video and on other websites and stuff like that. I don't know why I could only think of literally those two other websites, but you get the point that I'm trying to make. Okay? And it's not like they're just doing like gaming or just chatting streams. There's also virtual YouTuber. I really want to say virtual content creators, but that is a mouthful. Virtual YouTubers who specialize in singing, dancing, and that sort of stuff. Possibly the biggest example I'll give is Hatsune Miku. Obviously, everybody knows Hatsune. Everybody knows her. Everybody. Anybody who is an otaku knows this girl. Even if you haven't been an otaku for decades, even if you've only been an otaku for like a year or possibly just like less than that, which is it is, you still possibly know Hatsune Miku, okay? Because Hatsune Miku was like the biggest thing when it comes to like just in general virtual creators. And she's been around longer than the Abe Yamato person I talked about earlier. Hatsune Miku has been around since like 2009? Oh god. I'll quickly look this up because yeah. All right. I was like the only time I'm looking this character up. 2007 actually. Excuse me. 2007. But you get the point that I'm trying to make. Okay. Well. So virtual creators have been around for like decades, okay? And even though, like I said before, you don't have to be a huge otaku to know Hatsune Miku, because like everybody knows that if you like anime, you've probably heard of Hatsune Miku, right? You probably listened to a few of her albums, right? Not me personally, but But just the thing is that I can't really discuss too much about like specific VTubers, okay? Especially since by some chance there could be a not a very popular one, but a very up and coming virtual like content creator listening to this podcast episode right now. It could be you listening to this right now. Who knows? I don't know. I obviously don't know. But the thing is that virtual YouTubers or virtual content creators have been spiking lately in terms of popularity, in terms of the amount that is, being distributed, I'll say, onto these websites. Because like I said, there's a good chunk, I want to say like almost 20,000, if not over 20,000, like virtual content creators. 10,000 on YouTube alone, I want to say. a little over, but that's just, yeah. I may be one of them. I may be one of them if you check my channel out. Even though I post my face every once in a while, but that's like a mix. It's like a mixed bag for me. So I think that will cover it for this episode of the Japanaholic podcast. I think I got my point across that virtual YouTubers are a massive thing and they should not be fucked with. I think. But I really, really enjoy virtual YouTubers. I'll say this. Like, if you want to watch whatever you want on YouTube, go right the fuck on ahead. Don't let any opinions on Twitter or on Spotify or on Facebook or even on YouTube, change your opinions on virtual YouTubers. If you love them, go ahead, share their love. Okay? If you want to support them by sending a super chat, go right on ahead. No one's going to, a lot of people make fun of people doing that because, oh, you're sipping or whatever, but, you're showing support. Just go ahead, show support. Alright? We're all Sims at one point in our lives. We're all degenerates. We're all otakus. We do stuff that when we think back on, a year down the line or a month down the line, we're like, man, that was stupid. Why'd I do that? But you know what? It's all fun and games. Alright? If no one gets hurt, then it's all fun and games. Alright? If you ain't doing anything terrible or illegal, it's all fun and games. Alright? Just, I don't know where I'm going with this, I'll be honest. But I want to thank you all so much for supporting this podcast. And if you want to share even more support, share this podcast out. I don't really want to make a Patreon yet because this podcast is not popular enough for a Patreon page just yet. I will possibly make one here soon. Possibly when I hit a year or whatever of doing this podcast, because I haven't been doing this podcast long enough for a Patreon. So I'd rather not make a Patreon just yet, but if you would like to still show some support, just share this podcast out with any fellow Japanaholics. Okay? And let them become Japanaholic like me. But, yeah, I'm going to go and I'm going to watch more virtual YouTubers. I will be back same time next week. I think I may I don't know what's going to happen next week because I have another episode with Alex that I would love to go out and have uploaded on here. But there's two problems here. One, it is the month of October, and I did not make a top news of anime for this month because I didn't realize it was the end of September when I said that I was going to make this episode. Whoopsie-daisies. So I may make it next week, but I do not know. I honestly do not know. And the second reason why the episode with Alex may not come next week is because it is a topic that the Trash Taste podcast already freaking did, and I don't really want to copy them. It just so happened that the topic that we talked about with me and Alex that's coming out in 2 weeks or next week, I don't freaking know, just so happened to be talked on the Trash Taste podcast, and I don't really want to upload it right now. So it may not be next week. It may be the week afterwards. But I don't know. I'm going to go watch more virtual YouTubers. And I'm going to tweet out more virtual YouTubers over at my Twitter page. I've been Taylor, the Certified Japanaholic, signing off. Good night from the VTuber hellhole.